This is Pokemon Diamond and Pearl reimagined in Unreal Engine 5. And this...
Is that the body of the Lucario that we just obliterated, dude?
That's how I did it. So this is the biggest game I've made here on YouTube so far. But no matter how big a project may be, it's gotta start somewhere. From the last Pokemon Black and White game, I wanted to focus on adding features that made the world feel more cohesive and less empty. Namely, Pokemon following, battleable trainers, and a long overdue PC system. After all, it kinda beats the gotta catch 'em all thing if you can only catch like 5 Pokemon. The first feature was really easy to make actually. I mean, making Pokemon follow you on Unreal is super simple. So there's this thing called the navigation mesh, or nav mesh for short. This nav mesh, amongst many other things, allows characters to walk around and understand the world, and all the Pokemon in the game are characters. That means that really all I have to do is put this nav mesh in the level, spawn a Pokemon behind me based on the first one in my team, and then give it the player's location. Then, once I add in a walking and running animation blend, it's pretty much done. So the trainer battles were a little more complicated than that to make, but I ended up with this really cool system that allows me to put a trainer wherever I want and give them custom music, dialogue, and whatever Pokemon I want in their team. To make that happen, I had to create all of these options as variables inside of the parent class all these trainers inherit from, and click this little eyeball here to expose them. And then there's all this code that actually uses these variables. Essentially, the way it works is that when the player begins to overlap this box in front of the trainer, they begin to walk at you and play their music. When they reach you, they start talking, and once you get through the entirety of their dialogue array, the battle starts. Now, in battle, they send in Pokemon one by one that come from this array, and when all the Pokemon in that array have 0 health, the battle ends, and there's different dialogue for the trainers depending on whether you won or lost. Thankfully though, the PC system was also pretty simple. How it works is that each one of these buttons in the PC box is actually its own widget class, which contains all the info on what Pokemon is in there so it can know what sprite to display. Then, when you click on one, it pops up this menu on the side that lets you add it to your team. Again, it really is that simple. But that's enough programming talk, right? I mean, come on, nerd stuff, am I right? But seriously, making the trainers all modular like that was super helpful when it came to world building later on. Oh yeah, and there's also a whole bunch of new Pokemon in the game. I went through the process before in an earlier video about how I get Pokemon in the game, but I streamlined how I do it now so it takes a little bit less time. Though that's not to say that implementing all the new Pokemon was a breeze. In fact, I had to make some cuts because some of the Pokemon's animations were for me, at least. I'm not an animator. But what I am is a level designer, and so it was time to take this Mount Coronet map and move it to 3D. I made a terrible mistake. So as it turns out, making the entirety of Mount Coronet, the areas around it, and maybe a little bit more, is, a lot. I know, it seems obvious now, but don't evaluate my methods. I'm currently reevaluating my methods. And also, there's this really annoying bug in Unreal 5 where sometimes when you use the engine for a long time, I don't know, I think it's something to do with sublevels, it will start creating autosaves all the time, which is kind of like...
Oh my god! Oh Jesus!
But anyway, after way too long, I finished the playable area. There's also a little forest area I had to build here, and so I felt that I needed a little inspiration.
Yeah, so I'm out here in the forest now. There's trees all around me. And a lot of leaves.
So that wasn't that useful, but I figured it out anyway. Also, invisible walls. I only added these because everybody always loves invisible walls in video games, so... Anyways, with all that in place, the map was done. Well, except for the pièce de résistance. Yeah, I took French for 12 years in school just to do that. I know, you're pretty impressed. You don't have to lie to me. Spear Pillar. That's the last area. And good news, it's a very small area, but bad news, there's a lot of cinematics to make. But at least I wouldn't have to go and like make storyboards for everything because I could just go reference the original games, right? But then I thought of some ways I could make it cooler, maybe rewrite the script a little bit, and I ended up rewriting the whole story. But before we get into this, I'm not gonna make you take my word for it. I'm just gonna let it play.
Bro, what? Bro, this is sick. Random guard jump? Is that Cynthia?
Where did? Oh, Cynthia.
Dude, this is wicked.
So I thought it all came out pretty cool. Maybe you agree. I think, you know. But how did I make the cutscenes, you ask? That's a really good question. Thanks for asking. I wouldn't have known what to say. To answer your question, I used the level sequencer feature, which allows you to do things in a level sequentially. The way I go about making cutscenes in Unreal is always to do the camera movements first. The reason being hopefully pretty obvious in that you need to know where the camera's going to be to know where to put all the action. In a way, it's representative of the entirety of a game's development. It only matters what the player sees. This is why for the Pokemon catching animation, there are actually two balls being spawned. One that your player throws and another one closer towards the Pokemon so that they never miss. But the player wouldn't know that. So just remember to always get the things that you want on camera. Back to the cutscene though, after setting up all the camera movement, I queued up all the animations for the various characters with proper timings. After that, I added some audio tracks and some small polish elements like slight camera shakes. And with that, the game is done, right? So yeah, I kind of decided to make Cyrus moonwalk backwards and then up and disappear. Apparently, when I rewrote the story to include the distortion world, the message didn't get through to my brain that I would actually have to, you know, make it. And so there's no crazy gravity flips or anything in here. The only thing that really changes is the gravity's intensity, which is, you know, something. Pretty much all that happens here is you enter, you watch Cyrus fall to his death, and then you battle Giratina. Which, when beaten or caught, takes you out of the distortion world and back to Spirit Pillar. Come to think of it, I don't know what actually happens if you lose. So, don't lose. And with that, we're finally done. Now, there's only one thing about this battle that really separates her from the main series game Cynthia's, which is... But for real this time, once you beat her, that's the end of the game. There's no credits roll at the end or anything because it was just me that made it, so. But I do want to give a huge shout out to Zane because I used about like 15 tracks of theirs or so and they all sound amazing. And so if you enjoy Pokemon music, go check out their channel. They do a fantastic job. If you want to go ahead and play the game yourself, you can this time. There is a download link in the description. Well, there's a Discord server link, and then within the Discord server, there's a download link section, so you can figure it out. And the Dropbox repository that's there not only includes this project, but also my earlier Pokemon project, as well as the Zelda game I made and the Halo game. I've also been dipping my toes into live streaming a little bit, so if you're interested in that, make sure you're checking around on this channel. You can also check over on my Twitch. I just made it, whatever. With all that being said, I do hope you enjoyed the video and do end up enjoying the game if you get around to playing it. If either of those things are true, I do hope you do the YouTube thing, you know, like the video, subscribe, hit the notification bell, leave a comment about how attractive I am, you know, the usual. But anyways, that's it. Bye-bye.